Hello, everybody, and welcome to this latest in the ValuesJam guest session series. Tano, fantastic to have you here. So please introduce yourself and tell everybody about the great work that you do.
Hi everybody, my name is Gaetano Marsala and I'm an English teacher in Italy. I try and transmit some of my passion for the language to my students, and uh, there's nothing really special about my job. I just try to do my best and hope that the students pick up that and they will love the English language as much as I do.
Thanks, Tano. And where can people find you if they want to know a bit more or if they're interested in learning English?
They can contact me at tanomarsala@gmail.com. That's TANOMARSALA at gmail.com. I work for a company that's called Wall Street English. There's lots of great schools that you can get in touch with, but if you want, I'm open to giving you suggestions, tips, and tricks.
Okay.
Uh,
And so I just do need to make a comment on something, a couple of things that you said just now, actually. So I was conscious that you said what you do is you try to, inspire your students or whatever it was. And what people might realize as we go through this conversation is that you are extremely modest, but extremely talented at the same time. And what you also said was that there's nothing really special about your job. And that is absolutely not the case because once somebody said to me, the great thing about a teacher is that they touch the future. And I think that that is a beautiful phrase and explains the importance of how a teacher has the chance to inspire somebody for their whole life. And so, in that way, I think the job is probably the most important job in the world. So I just wanted to put those things in.
you're right. You can have a huge impact on people, so I shouldn't diminish my job.
So let's choose a values jam card. I'm going to tip the deck out. And how many piles would you like me to make in front of me while I just shuffle them a little bit?
Let's go for 4 piles.
Four piles, okay. So I'm going to make them kind of different sizes. And so now pile number one is on my left and pile number four is on my right. So which pile shall I choose?
Pile number 1.
Number one. And here we have 3, 6, 9, 11 cards. So a number between 1 and 11.
7.
7, your favorite number.
It's a good number.
Okay, so here's a word, safety.
Ooh,
And I
okay.
know that you have a values jam card deck. So have you values jammed with the value safety yet or not?
No, not yet. It hasn't come up.
Okay, so let's see. How do you feel about this card?
It's how can I say? Hmm, it's very current at the moment because I think a lot of people don't feel that. Hmm. So
And also I'm getting a sense from you that it's a pretty serious kind of word, right?
I think so. A lot of people uh, need to have this feeling of safety to live a good life, right? Like if you don't feel safe in your city, in your home, in your class, uh, things don't work that well.
Yeah, so let's start to get into it then with the first question, and let's think, what does safety mean? And what does it look, sound, and feel like?
Safety means being able to mm, be yourself and just go on about your day without worrying about your life. uh, So yeah, it should look like people just uh, how can I say, happily walking down the street or something idyllic like that. But it's very hard sometimes to get that kind of feeling. Uh, some people don't feel safe, maybe because uh, they have some prejudice, or some people don't feel safe because they have very young children and they're afraid for them. Uh, everyone, I think, has a trigger, but in an ideal world, we should be able to kind of being able to live with those triggers and not worrying constantly about them.
Yeah, my thoughts were very similar, and I was writing as you were talking, and I wrote at the same time as you said, "Be yourself." I think that's a really important part of this. And you used the word worry, I used the word fear. So without, you said without worry, and I said without fear. Um, and then in terms of the look, feel, and sound like, for me, the look is one of confidence and just being natural. So like you said, that walking down the street, if you want to skip, you can skip. If you want to dance, if you want to sing a song, whatever you want to wear,
Yeah.
everything is fine.
If your
Um,
hair is pink or blue, it's okay.
yeah, absolutely. And then feel, oh yeah, feel no danger. So not this thing about, do I need to be concerned about what other people are thinking about me or what they might do as a result of that. So that feeling of freedom, if you like. And then the sound that I thought of was actually laughter. So just people really enjoying themselves and feeling that that was, normal and okay. But like you say, that's not always the case. So making this very kind of personal, where have you noticed a lack of safety?
I think in some areas maybe of my city, people don't feel safe going into or walking alone at night, which is maybe understandable for the late at night thing, okay, because it's scary, it's dark. But we should be able to enjoy the whole town, right? There shouldn't be borderline, some bordered areas where, it's not the best idea to go there because you could, I don't know, get mugged, or you could mm, receive an unfair treatment. Um, but I think also a lot of it comes from the news that you hear every day on TV or on the web. There's lots of violence that's being reported every day, and this is not what real life is. I mean, I've experienced some lack of safety a couple of times, but I can say that I feel pretty safe in my city, and this is why I like it here. But it's not the same for everyone.
I think what you're touching on there as well is so you mentioned the media, and if you hear a story about somebody being mugged, you've used that example. It might be that there are millions of people that haven't been mugged, but all that's in your head is the person that has been. And you've reminded me actually, my eldest daughter, probably, oh, it's a long time ago now, probably 15 years ago, um, was living in a flat in London, and the flat got broken into when they were there,
Mm,
and they got threatened at knife point. Um, and although that was a single incident for her, and by the way, she's a teacher. That was a single incident, and of course, there are many other days before then and after then when she's been safe, but that memory is still very strong with her and caused a problem for quite some time around that time. So there's something about the disproportionate impact of risk and danger in our heads. Do you relate to that in some way?
It's like, when there's a plane crash and you, of course, hear about it on the news, even if it's just one of millions. I don't have a number. One of many planes that are flying and have been flying safely. Uh, so yeah, I think that if especially if you have this experience personally, it can scar you for a long time. Uh, my brother have has been mugged here in Palermo once. He's been threatened. They've shown him a gun that he had holstered in his trousers, and so he gave him his headset, his headphones, and that was it. The guy walked away, and I've been mugged once, but I was living in Rome at that time. So I think in any big city there is a probability of some bad or desperate person that is trying to do some harm to someone else,
Mhm.
but it's not something that happens regularly. I think we live pretty safe lives here in my country, even though the media, like you said, they like to march on it and make it feel like it's not safe.
Yeah, so there's that one dimension of potentially the situations that are not safe being kind of put in the spotlight, so they're exaggerated, if you like. There's something else that I wanted to ask you about. So the with you teaching English, presumably you teach a lot of young people, is that right?
Yes,
What
yes.
sort of age group?
We range this year. I've started teaching 5 year olds too,
Okay.
so it's a lot of hands-on learning and up to 80 plus.
Okay. The reason I'm curious because there's something that I wanted to ask you about. So this probably relates to, I don't know, I'm imagining maybe 10 till 17 years old, something like that. Now, in London and the UK over the last few years, a lot of teenagers have actually been killed, stabbed.
Mm,
And so I wonder how this plays a part in our perception of safety, because I remember, when I was growing up, it used to be the thing that if somebody was in trouble, then you would step in and you would, try and help or deal with it. Whereas now, the advice is don't do that because there's a risk that you might come to harm yourself. And so I'm wondering what sort of influence that has on people's perception of safety. What do you think?
mm. I think it's a difficult choice for the person if to intervene or not. Um, we cannot generalize, so we have to go on a case by case basis. I remember once I stepped in, and afterwards, like this person was threatening someone else, and I just shouted, leave them alone, don't bother them. And that person had the chance to walk away while the other person was like uh, cursing at me. And afterwards, I was like, wow, I was lucky there. I shouldn't have done that, perhaps, even though I felt the right thing to do in the moment. Uh, so we should try and do what we can, but I don't think we can ask anybody to actually. step in if they don't feel safe doing that.
Yeah, I agree with you that it's a big challenge, isn't it? Because on the one hand, you want people to do the right thing, but on the other hand, you wouldn't wish people to put themselves at risk or encourage that in some way. And so I think what you said is very wise, that it's really down to the individual, but also something about the individual understanding the situation and then making a more conscious choice rather than maybe a foolish one, or maybe one without thinking. Um, and I don't know, it seems that we do live in a very busy world these days where we tend to make decisions in the moment rather than with too much consideration. But that sounds like an old person talking.
I think it's hard to think in those high adrenaline situations as well.
Yeah.
So yeah, you need to try to keep calm and see if you can do something to help. If not, the best you can do, of course, is I don't know, call the authorities. But that's a topic for another day. I feel like.
Well, it's isn't that relevant too? Because again, I'd be interested to know what the perception is in Palermo, but certainly here, and I was talking to somebody about this the other day about how when I was growing up, a policeman would be around and you would know them because they're the regular guy. And, what they said was probably more important than even your parents. If they told you something, that was it. You needed to make sure that you listened and you did what they said.
Mm.
Whereas now, I don't know why, probably because of various changes in policing methods and all of the rest of it, but there is not a very good relationship between the general public and the authorities generally, and there's a big lack of trust in many cases.
Yeah, there's a lot of mistrust of the authorities. Perhaps it has to do with the institutions, the things that have happened and how they've been resolved. Uh, Many years ago, there's been the G8 here in Italy,
Yeah,
and a policeman killed a teenager with a gun. I don't know if he was a teenager anyway. He killed a person, a protester, using his gun, I think. And this was a case that shocked the whole of Italy, and um, there wasn't any serious consequence in the end for the police that showed excessive force. And this is something that, again, instead of bringing a feeling of safety, can scare people into uh, maybe showing up for a protest or uh, doing what it feels right in that moment. Uh, and also, I don't know how it is in the UK, but it takes a long time for a police car to get to you if you call one.
yeah, it
So it's not
is.
an immediate response. And I know that they're not Superman, but when they are needed, that uh, they should be able to reach people in a good amount of time. I don't know how to work that out, but I feel like there could be some improvements being made.
Yeah, there's something. So, and by the way, it's similar here. We have issues with even zero response if the crime that's reported isn't deemed to be important enough. And I'm not attacking the
Mm.
authorities because I also understand the other side of the equation where they have so much bureaucracy to adhere to make sure that everything is done so properly and all the rest of it. And also, there are other areas that didn't used to involve the police. So, for instance, kind of mental health and personal care, these sort of issues, the police are being called for. Whereas it used to be that they were able to concentrate on criminal activities and dealing with those. So they're stretched in that way as well. But
Mhm.
this, I wanted to ask you about something around, we talked about that personal situation just now where we were saying, yeah, you need to make a choice and it's a difficult one, but it's down to the individual. Then we've talked about the way these institutions are run from an organizational perspective. And it feels to me like there is a lack of balance between these two. So, that example about the policeman on the streets, them deciding how they deal with a situation, whereas now they have to fill in so many forms after they've dealt with the situation to justify why they've done the right thing and everything else. And that might be beneficial in one case in a million, but is it worth all of that time that's invested in the other however many cases? Have you got any views in terms of that balance between personal responsibility and trust in the individual versus trying to make sure that the institution manages everything?
Uh, don't know. There needs to be accountability for each member of uh, the police force, of course. I don't know if maybe body cameras would be a good in between. You know, you get the actual proof that they were following the right course of action. If they intervened, and maybe they don't have to go through the whole process of explaining in so much detail why they acted that way because they have evidence, video evidence.
I was talking to somebody about this recently, actually, because I was thinking, and I agree with you, I think body cams, if you have that recording, then perhaps AI could look at every body cam and ask if there are any issues to be dealing with. So imagine how much time that could save, where you've got red flags that are indicated so that AI knows that if this happens in the recording, and with its ability to review so much so quickly, it just feels like that would be an obvious way to use technology and advancement. Um, you've also made me think about, so I mentioned my daughter is a teacher. In teaching, there's some issues around regulations and safety as well, right?
Yes, it's a big responsibility as well. If especially if you're dealing with young children, so you need to be able to not just teach the children, but also look after them and make sure they don't hurt themselves. So yeah, that could also be some another area where there could be some improvements, maybe on recently on the news. I've heard also that there's been a case of abuse in a school in Italy, for example. Um, so that's obviously terrible. Like as a teacher, I feel this news, brings down the whole code of honor. It's like there's no written rules, but it doesn't need to be written. If you're there teaching the children, you gotta look after them. You can't take advantage of someone so vulnerable. So I feel that's disgusting and it makes me sick. But I'm sure there have been cases before, and um, so in that way, also in schools, there needs to be an improvement in safety, and sometimes the other way around. When teenagers are particularly rowdy, in some areas here, you can find some pretty crazy classrooms. I know I was a rowdy student too, but not not violent, but there has been violence towards the teachers sometimes. So yeah, maybe I don't know if cameras is the answer to everything, because then we go turn into the big brother, and we experience a lack of privacy and whatever other uh, backlash we could have by filming every single moment of school or the police force in action. So I don't know. I don't know how feasible it would be uh, financially as well, because I'm sure you need a big investment for that.
Yeah, it's kind of I'm naturally an optimistic person, but it's kind of a no-win situation because, like you've described, those people are a disgrace. But probably they've always existed and probably they always will. And so then the question is, do you treat everybody as if they were like that? And that causes its own complications itself. Or do you do your best to minimize what happens when those people do get through the system in some way? And it's a no-win all round. So what about let's move it to the other side of the coin. So when have you personally experienced a feeling of safety?
Mm. Well, when I'm with my friends or family, I feel very safe. I think it's a normal sensation when you're in a group of people that love you. And again, this is what then brings about positive behavior. You follow the example of what you see around you, and um this is what can build a better sense of safety for everyone. It's not cameras; it's interpersonal relationships.
Yeah, and that whole focus on us and our humanity seems to be an area that people find challenging to get into because, like we were saying, earlier, oh, get some cameras, use technology. Those things are very measurable and easy to kind of get into, I suppose, and get a hold of. Whereas when you start to think about, well, what is the influence of behavior and relationships on attitude? And then how does that flow through to the way that you go on to behave? That feels a lot less tangible and more subjective, more ambiguous, and therefore maybe for people that are making policy decisions is a whole lot more difficult to be able to say, yes, that's the way we should go. But I'm guessing you've, as a teacher again, and you mentioned rowdy classrooms. I remember teachers who they were like magicians because they would be able to change the mood of the class and do it in a conscious way, very skilled way,
Mm.
without it being kind of awkward or the students feeling that they have been disrespected or anything like that. And again, that's all to do with social skills, right?
Not everyone has this skill. It's a it's something you need to be taught as well. If all you've ever gotten as a student is like, shut up and be silent, and otherwise I'll send you to the principal. There's not much you can do to lead the classroom in a different way, right? Because that's all you've ever known. Uh,
For sure. And how do you teach that then? Because if I suppose there's a couple of choices. There's one where you just let people do their own thing and accept that some people won't be very skilled at it, and maybe the example that you've given, that's the way that it will be. or you can try and teach people somehow. Um, Maybe those are the two choices. So how do you teach it?
I think you have to show them how it can be different, and if you talk to your students a certain way compared to another way, and if there's a reciprocal respect for the other person, and like you said, you feel like they're on your same level, then the relationship can improve, because you treat them as a person and they'll treat you as a person in return. Some people will still be, disturbing the class, or it's in their nature. But I feel like it's much better uh, to teach people how to reason with their students rather than just shout at them. And sorry,
Yeah,
my
you
cat is meowing, is agreeing with me, hopefully.
you've reminded me of I did a project with a prison, and the original plan was to do so it was a values into action kind of program, and the original intention was to do this with the prison officers. But I suggested that they might consider including the people that were serving their sentence as well, so that we had the officers and the people serving together for this workshop.
Mm-hmm.
And I remember like you say, it was quite rowdy. But the rowdy guys added so much more than many of the prison officers. And so rather than try and get them to be quiet, I embraced the rowdiness and got them to really operate at that level of high energy, but in a channeled way and in a positive way,
Mm-hmm.
rather than trying to close it down. And it was so productive. So there's something there about, even if people are rowdy, to not focus on the rowdiness, but to focus on the the positivity of the energy. And then the skill of the teacher is to redirect that. So rather than it being destructive, it's constructive.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I agree. Like when you have a student who cannot sit down for any longer than 5 minutes, you gotta let them do some kind of physical activity while learning, because that will work for them much better than just trying to keep them on the chair.
So is there a connection back to safety here, Tano? I don't want to force this, but you've mentioned a couple of times, and I think the way that I would summarize where you're going is kind of in their shoes. So what you're seeming to be saying is that if you can treat people and understand how they are, then maybe you're going to make it better for them and you're going to get a better result. Is that partly to do because they feel safer from a psychological point of view rather than feeling, oh, I've been told that I've got to sit down and I feel like I want to get up and wander around and I'm not allowed to do that. Is there something there?
Yeah, probably, because if you don't have a threatening environment, then you can again be yourself. We go back to the starting point, and you can relax and you can actually um, behave as you would normally, and instead of sitting down because you feel like you have to, and then maybe you feel like uh, you're suffering in some way because of this
Yeah,
environment in the classroom or
yeah,
whatever.
yeah.
Could be in the workplace, could be uh,
I think
anywhere.
that's right, and what it's making me think of is the relationship between the organization and the individual. So, like you say, whether it's a workplace or whether it's a classroom or whether it's a prison environment or whatever, um, often the way that the organization systems and processes are set up is for the benefit of the organization, not for the benefit of the people that are
Mm,
receiving the service. And probably that makes sense because if you've got, say, a classroom of 30 people, it's more challenging to deal with 30 individuals than it is to say we're going to treat everybody this way. But again, it feels like there's some sort of, rather than it be one end or the other, there's some balance to be struck in the middle where you do allow some freedom, not treating everybody the same, people feeling I'm being treated as an individual, okay, not to the extreme, but at least to a certain extent, and therefore I feel safer.
probably it.
Now, in Values Jam, there's a chance for you to ask your own question. So I'd like to invite you to do that now. So ask a question about safety, beginning with who, what, where, when, why, or how. And if you have the answer immediately, please do share that. And if you'd rather, I can have a go first and then you can respond and we can see where we go.
Hmm. Hmm. How can we achieve more safety on a personal level? But perhaps we need to look at the family sphere because the family is the hardest one to reach, probably. So that's where it all begins, right? Before school, before the workplace, or whatever, we need to perhaps define a way to have safer families. How can we do that?
Wow. Just a small question from you, Tana.
Just
Now,
the one.
yeah, so I love this question because I think the reason that we are experiencing some of the challenges that we do in society is because the pillars that used to be so reliable and provide so much security and safety and guidance are no longer there anymore. And one of them is family. So for various reasons, whether it be people are not staying together for as long as they used to, that's one reason. Another reason is geographic mobility. So families are, just leaving and going to other places. So
Mm,
the sense of the family nucleus is being diluted for whatever reason. Then I think there are two others. I know it's outside of your question, but I think it's relevant. Religion. People are less religious than they used to be, and religion again used to provide this strong pillar of this is how you behave. Um, and then the final one is the local community. So this is kind of related to the family, but it used to be that you knew your neighbors and your neighbors would look after you and you would look after them.
mm,
Whereas now we know our neighbors much less. And so in the absence of those three things, how can we feel safe? And then there's all of the individualism in society, just saying you get on and don't worry about everybody else, which is a cocktail for a bit of a mess, really. What are your thoughts on that then about family?
mm. Don't know. Maybe like you said, there is a lack of community. That's maybe the biggest one, achieved through religious communities or just simply people sharing uh, their meals. It was much more common back in the day, but now, especially after COVID, we're all much more antisocial, I believe, myself included. um, Perhaps giving a lot more psychological support to families, to individuals in need, because if you're not, if you don't feel safe and you don't have anyone you can talk about it with, then it's only going to get worse and worse. So maybe that could be the first step towards a safer environment for everybody.
I think it's a fantastic point, and maybe so. I don't think we're going to change things like people staying together longer. But that might just be something that happens in society when you're with somebody for 20 or 30 years. We're healthier for longer, and it might be natural to expect that some people will change as people, and then maybe it's not right that they do stay together. That's one thing. Secondly, the geographic mobility, I'm not sure that's going to change, so families will be diluted. So, in the absence of it being a family issue, maybe it is about creating these stronger personal relationships, either with family or with local community or somehow so that, like you say, people feel they've got somebody to talk to, somebody to share things with, rather than feel lonely at the end of the day. Um, and I love that thought about that very simple idea of strong personal relationships being the root of a feeling of safety.
Yeah, I think if you know you can rely on your family and your friends, you don't generally worry about things. You're like, oh, I've got this. I've someone's got my back.
Yeah, I think that's a really great, optimistic point to bring our values jam to a close, Tano. It feels natural to do that. And as you know, there's a final question, which is what are you encouraged to do differently about safety as a result of this conversation?
Hmm. Uh, it's the hardest question every time. um, I'll probably try and put the extra thought into the situation and try and provide extra safety to the people around me and people in my community. Um, be it just waving at someone and letting them know that they are seen, or uh, just stepping in the moment of need for somebody.
Okay, and I'm gonna push you a little bit on this because if we take what you've just described as a general principle, when might you be able to do something in practice, even if it's very small, towards what you've just described?
You can help somebody get up when they fall in front of you. Uh, Ask them, "Are you all right?" Saying hello to your neighbor, I think that's a very important thing. But now we don't do that so much anymore. You can, yeah, just say good morning. It's a good start, I think. And
Okay,
then things will follow.
yeah, I think that is a great start. Um, what you've made me think about today is how important it is to think of the other person and to demonstrate how you're, and I use this phrase, so thinking like others for others. So whenever you're in a situation to just be putting yourself in that person's shoes and then do something, however small, to show that you're thinking for them, not for you. And I'm going to do. I've got a long call this afternoon. I'm going to look through my calendar for this week, and I'm just going to think about each of the calls that I've got or meetings that I've got, and how am I going to be able to put that into practice, to put myself in the other person's shoes and do something for them uh, to help them feel better rather than kind of be obsessed with my agenda and what it is that I'm looking to achieve with that session. So I'm going to enjoy doing that today. So, Tano, thank you very much for this Values Jam. I know that you've had plenty of practice and it kind of showed. So, thanks very much and look forward to chatting with you again sometime.
You're welcome. It's been a pleasure. I'll report back after my first group session, so
Yeah,
we can
cheers.
exchange notes.
Okay, bye now.
Bye. Thank you, Alan.